You're listening to Afternoons on FNR, Football Nation Radio with Adriano Del Monte and Rick D'Andrea.
Good afternoon and welcome to Afternoons on FNR for this Wednesday here in Australia, 27th of February 2019. I'm your host for this afternoon's proceedings, Rick D'Andrea. And joining me here in our Facebook Live studio, and welcome to all those who are watching us, Damon Palmar for another round of a little bit of fun, a little bit of frivolity, and a whole heap of footballing chat. Welcome to you.
Hello, Rick. Thank you.
And what an exciting overnight it has been of football. Plenty going on, plenty of matches played in England. Obviously, the English Premier League did have a midweek round. There was some Coupe de France action, some Coppa Italia action, I should say, not Serie A. And plenty of coaching round talk to keep us very much entertained. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on plenty of the topics that we're going to discuss over the next few hours. Do get involved, 99449999. And if you are interstate, add a 03, or you can always tweet us at FNR_radio. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, we have to always thank our sponsors who allow us to go on air every single day. Lanco Group and DKP Chartered Accountants, the two in particular. But as we do every time at the top of every news hour, Damon, hint of news, please, to get us going.
Thank you, Rick. There were 4 matches played early this morning local time in the English Premier League, with several shock results. A Steve Mounier strike in the 91st minute has given Huddersfield their first win in 16 outings by defeating Wolves 1-0. Newcastle have ended Burnley's 7-game unbeaten run with a 2-0 win at St James's Park. 2 first-half goals from Fabian Schär and Sean Longstaff helped the Magpies move into 13th and edge away from the drop zone. Everton have claimed their 4th away win of the season by defeating Cardiff 3-0. A Gylfi Sigurdsson goal in each half and a Dominic Calvert-Lewin strike late on saw the Toffees walk away with maximum points. Leicester have also claimed a 2-1 win over Brighton. Demarai Gray and Jamie Vardy both found the back of the net before Davy Propper pulled one back for Brighton to bring the match to life for the last part. Speaking of the Foxes, Brendan Rodgers has been appointed Leicester City's new manager after leaving his job at Celtic. The Northern Irishman has signed a contract until June 2022 and succeeds Claude Puel, who was sacked after 16 months in charge. It marks a Premier League return for Rodgers, who previously managed Liverpool and Swansea. In Cup action, an Angel Di Maria brace and a Thomas Meunier strike were enough for Paris Saint-Germain to progress through to the semi-finals of the Coupe de France against Dijon, while Lazio and Milan played out a scoreless draw in their Coppa Italia semi-final first leg. Bordeaux have sacked their coach for the second time this season. Ricardo has been shown the door after he replaced Gus Poyet in September. It is being strongly reported that Paulo Sousa, currently at Chinese Super League club Tianjin Qianjian, will replace him. And finally, Real Madrid captain Sergio Ramos has been charged by UEFA for deliberately receiving a yellow card during the Champions League match against Ajax in order to serve a suspension before the quarter-finals. Ramos was booked in the 89th minute of Madrid's 2-1 victory in Amsterdam on February 13, which meant he would therefore miss the second leg at the Bernabeu. If found guilty by the UEFA Control, Ethics and Disciplinary Body on February 28, Ramos could face an additional suspension. Rick, back to you.
Thank you very much, Damon. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what does happen with the Real Madrid captain and whether officially he will be given that announcement and that suspension. We'll have to wait and see, obviously. Well, that news would come through Friday morning here in Australia, Thursday, of course, Thursday night in European time. So we wait to see whether he will be missing out on the quarter-final, which you would essentially at the moment feel that Real Madrid would be progressing to. They do have a 2-1 away lead, of course, over Ajax, but no Ramos, no Real Madrid has generally been the theme. He already does miss the second leg due to an accumulation of yellow cards. Can't rule out Madrid not getting through past that part of the tournament at this stage.
Yeah, it's interesting because he has been an absolute rock in defence this season. Obviously, over the course of his career, he's been outstanding. This season, he's been fantastic as well. It's just interesting his comments post that Ajax game. He actually came out and admitted that he deliberately got the yellow card and then later retracted those comments. But I find it interesting that he actually came out and said that.
Little silly, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you're going to go out and deliberately get a yellow card, which I think he would have done so in this case, don't make it obvious.
Yeah, just keep it to yourself. I know, we're all about in the media and we're all about trying to get the most out of players and expressing how they really feel, but you don't want them to cost them essentially another game on the sidelines, do you? And that's essentially what he's done here.
It's going to be massive. Assuming they get past Ajax, they could face one of the giants in world football, Barcelona, their biggest rivals, Paris Saint-Germain. Imagine they have to face one of those two teams coming up against Messi, Suarez, or Mbappe and Neymar without their best defender.
Just puts them in a little bit of a compromised position going forward. And we know that Natra, for instance, he did pick up a red card against Levante. I know it's got nothing to do with the Champions League. Rafa Varane sort of hasn't been at the same height this season in particular. He sort of dropped a little bit compared to what we saw towards the end of last season and, of course, during the FIFA World Cup. Few little things that might need to be ironed out. We know Marcelo, unfortunately, just ventures up too far up the field and gets found out, especially as the other team transition. Few little things not going 100% well at Real Madrid. But I'm sure we'll have plenty more on that news over the coming week. And as we tend to do here on Afternoons on FNR, let's start with the matches that were played overnight. We'll start in England because there were 4 and plenty to talk on those ones, but I think we have to start with the biggest one of all. Huddersfield finally get a win after 16 matches unbeaten. They did it. They did it the hard way. 91st minute goal by Steve Mounier, or Mounier I should say. So congratulations there to the Terriers. Aaron Moore, if we want to bring it back to an Australian or Socceroos perspective, he was the one who put the ball in ultimately that was scrambled a little bit before Mounier decided to actually get it into the back of the net. So congratulations there to the Socceroo. Well done, Huddersfield. Finally.
Incredible. I was very surprised by this. Well, not only result, but the performance. If you watch the match, Huddersfield absolutely dominated. Chances-wise, they had numerous chances across the 90 minutes to score and finally got their reward in the 91st minute, winning 1-0 against a Wolves side who we've spoken about their impressive record against the top 6 this season, and then they come here to Huddersfield and lose against a team who have not won in 16. So disappointing for them.
Interesting, whilst doing some research, guess what the last team was that Huddersfield actually beat? Coincidentally,
surely
it just happened.
Wolves.
2-0 all the way back in early to mid-November.
So they've done the double against
They've
them
done
this season.
the double against Nuno Espirito Santo's men. Wolverhampton Wanderers have been found out, or Wolverhampton Wolves I should say, have been found out twice by Huddersfield.
That's incredible, considering Wolves have gotten results this year against Spurs, Liverpool in the FA Cup, a couple of draws against some of the other top 6 teams. That's unbelievable from Huddersfield. Well done to them.
It is incredible. Jan Sivert, the coach, obviously he was appointed only, 7-8 match days ago. Congratulations on your first win there. He obviously did replace a long-standing coach in David Wagner. And congratulations. We can't keep on saying it too many times, but yes, it's only, a second win in pretty much half a season. Do you give him any chance? Or is this just the inevitable sort of run towards the end of the season? You pick up a few little wins, maybe to get a few supporters, keep them on side, and hopefully, bounce back up in 12 months' time with the inevitable going down into the championship.
Yeah, I still think they're definitely gone. They're just too far behind, unless they go on some miraculous run from here on. But I just don't see enough quality in that side to do so. So I think they will be playing in the championship. Their goal ultimately has to be to come straight back up.
Be a yo-yo team, as I like to put it. Go down, but come straight back up.
That's a good analogy, but that's a tough thing to do. Not many teams do it. Look at Sunderland. They were relegated twice. Yep. Relegated to the championship and then once more to League One. If you're a bigger club such as Newcastle and West Ham, they were able to do it. But for Huddersfield, it will be tough. But good luck to them.
Yeah, no, we wish them all the best. Unfortunately, congratulations here. Enjoy the celebratory win. But I think it might be that little bit too half. They're already 10 points behind Southampton, who do occupy that final relegation spot at the moment. And then you've got Cardiff on a further point ahead on 25. So if they really want to get out, there's a lot of wins they're going to have to get between now and the end of the season, something they really haven't done. So fingers crossed. Well, I did touch on Cardiff, and I did say Cardiff should win against Everton, but, Cardiff 0, Everton 3. The Toffees turn up away from home, get their 4th or 5th win of the campaign on the road. And one man only led them to victory in my eyes, and that is, of course, the Icelandic international, Gylfi Sigurdsson. 1 goal in each half. And, well, they're in with a chance of still making Europe. Obviously, Wolves dropped some points. They're still in the mix in my eyes.
Clinical win here from Everton. We're a bit unsure of how they would come to Cardiff and perform, but they got the job done. 3 goals, clinical performance. Sigurdsson, that man you mentioned, 2 fantastic goals, and a 3rd from Calvert-Lewin. Cardiff, on the other hand, 8 goals conceded in 2 home fixtures in a row.
That's a big issue now, isn't it?
Yeah, not what they would want, considering they are just that 1 point above the relegation zone. But well done to Everton, a much-deserved victory here.
Yeah, I've kept on saying, and especially with these 2 matches, sure, they were higher quality teams, Watford and Everton, but you need to get the results here. You need to get points in these sorts of matches. You know, scoring only once and conceding 8, that's not the record that you want at all. And no matter what the distractions are off the pitch, it's on the pitch that does the loudest talking. And unfortunately, Cardiff, it looks like you're going to go back to South Wales with your legs tucked in between your tail, or your tail in between your legs, and maybe relegation bound and threatened, depending on what Arsenal do against Southampton. We'll have to wait and see.
The pressure is certainly on Cardiff City. They will be in a relegation dogfight for the remainder of the season, I would say.
It's going to be a struggle for them, and we wish them all the best. Now, Ivan's come through, and he's mentioned the topic of our next team that we are going to discuss. Just before we discuss exactly what he wants to, and we will very, very shortly here, Leicester 2, Brighton 1. Mark Stahl was the assistant coach who came in and took over for this match. We may as well tie it in with the announcement that did get made prior to the game, and that is, of course, that Brendan Rodgers, the former Swansea, Liverpool and Celtic manager, will be taking over the club as of, well, pretty much 7-8 hours' time. When he wakes up this morning in England, he will be wearing an LCFC top. Whatever they did at the moment, sure, getting rid of Claude Puel has hurt them, but they've been able to bounce back just as fast, 2-1 against a Glenn Murray team that probably could have had 2 goals on in their own.
It just happens so often when a manager gets sacked, that team that week just lifts and finds a way to get the win. And that Leicester have done so here. Jamie Vardy getting on the score sheet in a 2-1 win.
Damari Gray is the bigger one. His best ever season in terms of goals. 4 goals all of a sudden. He's got a little bit to work with here all of a sudden, Brendan Rodgers. And we know that he's very attacking. This could be a style that maybe suits Leicester going forward a little bit more.
Yeah, they do have a few attacking options. Gray, Vardy, Maddison, who's come about this season, who is a fine player. So, yeah, you're right. Rodgers does have not a bad squad to work with going forward.
Yeah, and it was also nice to see how the crowd reacted to him signing. He was putting up their hands and saying, thank you, thank you. He's doing these famous clap, and he had his big teeth smiling, from ear to ear, as he normally has done over the years at both Liverpool and Celtic. So it's great to see him back in the English Premier League. And I'll get your quick thoughts. How do you think he will go, say, between now and the end of the season? I'm not going to look too far ahead, but in the next, say, 10 to 12 matches that he's going to be in charge with the Foxes, how do you think they're going to go?
I'm not sure too much will change in terms of their ladder position. I can't see them finishing higher than, say, 8th. I think 8th or 9th will be their finishing position. But I think they will string a few wins on the board. Obviously, hadn't won in 6 up to this point. They got the win here. I think he may rejuvenate them a little, but I think next season is when we'll really start to see, I guess, Rodgers' philosophy implemented into this side.
When he starts to make the signings, when the checkbook gets opened up that little bit more, we'll have to wait and see. But as Ivan sort of did continue on with his comment, he did say he'd rather much see an upcoming young English manager rather than someone being recycled. Well, I can understand that, but I think in the position that Leicester are in, I think you can't really go down the route of the recycled. I think you have to sort of try and get someone who has had some sort of success. I know we keep on going back to it, but match day 34, 2012-2013 season, and the slip, the Denver Bar Steven Gerrard incident. That's how close Brendan Rodgers was to winning a Premier League title. And I think, yes, he has taken some time away in Scotland. He's rejuvenated. He's worked on his tactics a little bit, but I think it might be time now to sort of welcome back Brendan Rodgers into the English Premier League coaching fold and see what he can do with this team.
Yeah, Leicester have gone a little safe with their appointment, but I don't mind that at all. He's clearly got the Premier League experience. You mentioned that season was so close to winning a Premier League title. I don't think he'll do that here at Leicester, but he does have that experience that I think Leicester need right now.
That 7th to 10th position that they've always craved and they always aim for, I think 7th now becomes a little bit more realistic, or at least can be expected that little bit more regularly, probably is the way I'm trying to put it. So, fingers crossed, Brendan Rodgers, you do a very good job. All the best from us from here at FNR Football Nation Radio. Let's see how you do go. There was one other fixture though. One other game that we need to talk about from overnight. Newcastle 2-0 Burnley. Burnley finally get that defeat after 7 matches unbeaten. I think they were unbeaten in 2019. I think that's what I ended up hearing in the commentary whilst I was actually tuned into this match. Some very nice goals. Fabian Schär, that first one from outside the box, is a cracking goal. If you haven't seen it, do get on board and do see it.
Certainly contender for goal of the season for me. That was an absolute thunderbolt. I said yesterday I didn't think Burnley would be able to back up their win against Tottenham, and they haven't done so. Newcastle, 5 home wins in a row. Incredible from the Magpies, a team who were really struggling this season, but have now found their feet against a team who were unbeaten.
Found their feet.
Yeah, who had found their feet in 2019 and were unbeaten in 7. But Newcastle get the win here, massive for them and Rafa Benitez.
And considering how close Newcastle were to the drop zone, I know it was only in the middle part of the season, January, February, but they were pretty much hovering, if not, tiptoeing across that 17th and 16th position. They're well clear now. They are incredible. They're, 28 points, if I'm not mistaken. 31 now with that win. So they've blown apart. They're still, 7 points away from Southampton, but, we've talked about Southampton, we've talked about Cardiff. They don't look like they're going to get any wins anytime soon, so they might be able to clear away even more, and maybe a mid-table finish for the Magpies might be on the cards here.
Absolutely. They're well on their way to safety, and I think you're right. They're not too far off the mid-table, just a few points off West Ham, who are in 10th at the moment on 36 points. So, well done to Newcastle. They kept their heads up, and they are on their way to potentially a mid-table finish.
Yeah, and we wish them all the very best under Rafa Benitez. The speculation, of course, with him possibly going to Leicester, well, that got scuppered very quickly. He's not going anywhere. He will be staying there, the Spaniard. Speaking of some Spanish players or some Spanish teams, we will be previewing the Clasico Mamba Dos, number 2, in case you're not aware of Spanish. That is obviously coming up tomorrow morning, but just getting into some cup action, because there were a couple of games played in a couple of other leagues across Europe. We'll start with France. PSG 3, Dijon 0. Now, this is the goal of the morning. Not Fabian Schär's in my eyes. This one. Angel Di Maria, the first one, to cheekily chip the oncoming goalkeeper, who is standing upright and jumping from outside the box. You want to talk about goals? There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Right there. In the Coupe de France, they have absolutely torn apart a good old Dijon minus Kylian Mbappe.
World-class finish from Di Maria. That was absolutely unbelievable to watch. Outside the box, chip over the keeper into the corner. Well done to the Argentine. He ended up grabbing his brace in controversial circumstances.
Talk me through it.
I will. Di Maria threw on goal. He decided to make a pass to Choupo-Moting, who was playing as a lone striker in this match. He was offside. The Dijon defender came and slide tackled and intercepted the ball, and the ball fell back to Di Maria, who placed it into an empty net. Now, Choupo-Moting, who was offside, had he not been there, the Dijon defender would not have needed to make a challenge. He did so, and then Di Maria ended up scoring. Hint of offside.
And there is VAR here in France. You have to always remember, and I don't want to keep on harping on that, but you've got that. You can use it, and well, they didn't. The goal was kept. It was allowed, and PSG went on to win the match. Obviously, at that stage, they went on to lead 2-0. So,
I think the big thing here is, did the Choupo-Moting interfere with the play? And you have to say he did, based on the, I guess, how the goal was scored. Nonetheless, dominant performance from PSG. Thomas Meunier grabbing the third, 15 minutes from time. Fantastic performance. Verratti outstanding.
Verratti to Draxler, who then made the pass through to Di Maria. That's the moment that I recall from the match very, very clearly. those three, when they're able to split open the defence, and obviously we know what he was able to do for the rest of the game. Yeah, Verratti's just come back a little bit of a beast, and he's going to be very much needed across the last third of PSG's season if they are to win multiple trophies.
No Neymar, no Cavani, no Mbappe, no Dani Alves in the starting lineup.
And they still win 3-0.
And they still look as the most dangerous team in world football.
That's scary to think. That is scary to think of those names, those players, that experience, that lethality that they have, and they still go on and win 3-0. It's incredible. It's incredible to think where this PSG team could also end up.
They will win this competition, I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, they're pretty much going to win a domestic double. Unfortunately, they won't be able to do a treble. They should go on and win here the Coupe de France. They're miles ahead already in the league, and well, there's only one other trophy they're chasing, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on, because there is a little bit of news that's floating around with PSG and some other teams that might want to start working together with the French capital club. The final game before we start to get into all the news, reviews, and plenty of transfer notes that are going around. Lazio and Milan. Yes, this ended 0-0. We both thought there were going to be plenty of goals in this one. There were plenty of opportunities to score. Let's put it that way. And in fact, I'm going to go as far as saying that Lazio choked. Lazio had between 4 and 6 chances to really, really cement a very strong first leg lead in the Coppa Italia, and Simone Inzaghi's men choked.
The same old story, if you're going to say it like that, because you look back at that game against Juve a few weeks ago, and Lazio had a plethora of chances to score and win the match against Italy's best team, and they couldn't. Same story here. Immobile, Milinkovic-Savic, Patric having chances to score, and they just couldn't find the back of the net.
They really couldn't. I mean, Immobile hit the post, if I'm not mistaken. He then had a chance from inside the 6-yard box. He sprayed that. Patrick, as you mentioned, had a chance from outside the box, and he hasn't really played too much for Lazio over the last, say, 4 or 5 seasons. He's only really been required, when you've had very much, career-ending injuries that come into players, or season-ending injuries, I should say. He hasn't seen a lot of minutes, and to allow him that much space to move up the pitch and have a shot, Piontek, I think, had a shot late on as well, but he was more or less very much marked by Francesco Ceppi very, very tightly. This was Lazio's to win. The ball was in their court, and now it's very much advantage AC Milan for the second leg in a few months' time. One
positive for Lazio, they did manage to keep out Milan and keep a clean sheet against a Milan side who have been scoring for fun recently. With the arrival of Piontek and Paqueta, Castillejo has been in great form as well. So they did get the clean sheet, so I think that is one positive to take to the San Siro for the second leg, but you'd have to say Milan the upper hand going into the second leg.
Yeah, big time. I mean, that was not a good look for Lazio. I just can't keep on saying it over and over. That really wasn't a good look. You should have actually put the Rossoneri away and almost determined the tie this early on.
What's the issue with Lazio? They seem to play so well sometimes against the big teams in Italy, but they just can't get 3 points, or in this case, they can't get a win in the Coppa Italia.
Problem is, it's one thing and one thing only. It's at 3-5-2. It's the only formation that Simone Inzaghi knows how to play. And the problem is that all the big boys know how to beat and how to counter a 3-5-2. 2 wing-backs, you just get in behind Lulic in particular, you end up finding a goal. Because, unfortunately, there's just been too much quality that has been taken out of this Lazio defence too many years in a row. Whether it be Kolarov, who was many years ago now, whether it be De Vrij, they've just been found out. Michel Bastos as well as in and out of this team. Whoever you want to name and mention, they've just been found out on too many occasions. And when you throw in Luis Alberto and Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, they just haven't had the seasons that they had last year. Ciro Immobile couldn't score in a barn door, or couldn't hit a barn door at the moment. He's so far wonky and shaky. He's not his usual self. Too many issues at the moment. It's as simple as that for me.
Yeah, disappointing for them. I think it's certainly going to cost them a place in the Coppa Italia final and a top 4 spot in Serie A as well.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit there, unfortunately, for the Biancocelesti to work on. Now, Damon, let's go to some of these transfery type news, because there's actually been a little bit floating. Actually, no, let's do that, and then we'll talk about one of the other coaching appointments. You did mention that, but we'll go to some of these transfer newses. Now, let's get rid of the utterly ridiculous ones. because there was one that came across my desk this morning when I was prepping for the show. Manchester City. I can't even believe I'm going to go with this, but I want to go with this because I just want to hear what you think of it and how preposterous it is, and maybe give me a percentage as to whether it will occur. And I'd love to hear plenty of other people's thoughts. 9944 9999. Gabriel Jesus plus £86 million, €100 million, whatever you want to call it, for Harry Kane to go across from Tottenham.
Ridiculous.
Utterly bottom of the barrel, let alone the garbage bin. Ridiculous.
There is no chance Tottenham will accept an offer like that. I think Harry Kane is a world-class striker worth more than 86 million plus the asset of Gabriel Jesus. No chance that is happening in my eyes.
No chance. However, if you think about it, and let's go through this a little bit, Tottenham needs some money to go and buy some players. Sure, Daniel Levy, their chairman, has always said, well, we've got money. We don't need to worry about it. We've got this stadium that's built and it will earn us a lot of revenue in the next few years. But they get a chunk of money to invest straight away. They also get a striker that is younger than Harry Kane. Harry Kane's 25, 26. Yes, he's the captain of England. But they get someone who's about 21, 22 in Jesus. They get a ready-made replacement for the centre forward that they'd be losing. It's not the most preposterous thing going around, but I also can't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't think Gabriel Jesus is the same quality of Harry Kane, nor will he get to that level, in my opinion. You mentioned Tottenham need cash. Perhaps that's the case, but I think they can get more than 86 million for Harry Kane. I think they can get potentially 150, as has been reported previously. So I don't think Tottenham will accept an offer as short as that.
But why it's also interesting is that Jesus is valued by the club at 100. So it ends up becoming more or less what many people have speculated is Harry Kane's worth on the open market. So that's why it's an interesting discussion to have. Is pretty much we'll say £86 million plus Jesus worth Harry Kane?
100 million for Jesus, I think, is a little overpriced, in my opinion.
I reckon probably about 70, maybe 60 to 70 is where I think he might be worth, to be honest.
Yeah, that's much more accurate, I would say.
But even if at that we're talking about a player that's worth 70 plus 86, you're looking at 160 give or take. It's a pretty tempting offer, to be honest, if you are Levy, if you are Pochettino, and if you are the rest of the Tottenham board, not to really and seriously think about.
I would say there would be a lot of angry Tottenham fans if they did accept a deal such as that.
I think there would be. Considering that he did sign a 5-year deal recently and tied him up to Spurs, I don't think that sort of deal is going to be one that would be considered too much. But it is an interesting one to sort of follow over the next few months. We'll have to wait and see whether it does happen, but I would say more than likely it won't. I think this is more just media talk, just to sort of hype up an issue, just to get a little bit of clickbait and or newspaper sales. That's where I think that one is going to go. However, we did mention this one yesterday, but this one I think is starting to get a little bit more traction going forward, and that is, of course, Nicola Pepe. Now, Nicola Pepe, the Lille striker, we've been touting him as one of the next big major movers in world football, in particular over the upcoming summer transfer window. And Lille's sporting director, Luis Campos, he's now added not only fuel, he's probably gotten the oil tanker and decided to dump it all over the fire because he's turned this into a very, very big one all of a sudden. He is now suggesting that Pepe could be sold. The Ivorian Coast International might be having a new home somewhere else other than at LOSC.
I would say that is a strong possibility. Obviously, Pepe has had a fantastic season this year, leading Lille to second place. I think they will.
They look like they're there at the moment.
Just given the teams below them, their inconsistency, Lyon for one, who are in third. So Lille will finish second and qualify for the Champions League, very much thanks to Pepe. That may be a lure for him to stay. However, if a big club comes calling, we mentioned a few of those yesterday, I think he may be on the way out.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that he's going to stay in my eyes, considering that, and this is the interesting thing, that these are some of the words that are coming out of Campos. I'll read them out to you. We are not a rich club. It means that if a really good proposal comes for Pepe, we will sell him. ladies and gentlemen, I think there's only one answer, and one answer only coming forward from here. You put in a nice offer, I'd say maybe a 60, 50, maybe, I'll be generous, maybe between 40 and 70. I'll leave it very much open.
Sure.
Probably closer to 60 is where I'd say he'd probably be sold at, but anywhere between 40 and 70 for him. Offer him a nice little pay packet in the back of his pocket to live off on a weekly retainer. I think you'll get him. Who will want him? Well, half of Europe will probably want him. Half of course, England is after him. Arsenal, Wolves, Tottenham, etc., etc. Liverpool probably are in the mix as well. He could go anywhere and everywhere, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
he really could.
Absolutely. With comments like those, you'd say Campos has dollar signs in his eyes right now.
And he's probably got him at the right time. He's probably not going to do what a few others have done with their players and say, no, he's staying here for a long time. He's going to help us build a club. He's going to be here, he's going to be the future. Maybe he's doing the right move. Maybe he can use that money to go and find 2 or 3 others to maybe build an even stronger LOSC Lille team. It's going to be interesting over the next few months because he will get speculated on a lot. There will be a lot of discussion about him in his future, and we will bring you all the updates as they come along on FNR Football Nation Radio, and in particular here on afternoons on FNR. The other one, or many others actually, and it's got to do with Real Madrid, and it's got to also do with Ajax. So not only are the two teams meeting each other in a second leg, but the agent of a particular left-back from Ajax, whose name happens to be Nicola Tagliafico, he happens to play in that position. He's actually strongly hinted at something that, well, we've all been speculating for several months, and that is that Marcelo is about to leave the Santiago Bernabéu and join elsewhere across Europe, namely Juventus. How this has all come about is that the agent has finally revealed that Tagliafico is target numero uno for Los Blancos come July 1, 2019, the start of the summer transfer window.
Interesting. My first initial thoughts were Marcelo has been there for 12 years, since 2007 when he was an 18-year-old. He's been the best left-back in the world, in my opinion, during that time, so losing him will be incredibly hard to replace. So to bring in Tagliafico, not a fullback you'd say is right in that top bracket of the best fullbacks in the world. So interesting when I heard that.
He's 26, Tagliafico.
Good age.
We know he's an Argentine international. You know how much I rate the back line of the Argentinian national team. It's not very highly at the moment, but Tagliafico has had a very good couple of seasons at Ajax. He has developed into a very nice left back. He could be one for the future. We know that Sergio Reguilon, who is the current left back at Real Madrid, he has been playing a lot more this season, especially under Santiago Solari. I don't know, I'm still a little bit 50-50 on this. I think Tagliafico could make it in Spain. There are many more Argentines there. He would settle in very nicely. The language is the same as well, so that may help him going forward. I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't. If the agent is already coming out in March saying that there are open discussions about it, I'm not ruling this one out whatsoever, of course, by Ricardo Schippeler, who is his agent.
Of course, you also have to consider, if Marcelo does make the move, who else is really out there in the market. So Tagliafico, perhaps a very strong chance of joining Real Madrid next season.
Could, and of course, where does that mean that Marcelo goes? Well, he keeps on hinting where he wants to go. There's only one club and one club only that's reportedly linked with the Brazilian, and that is, of course, Juventus.
It's getting stronger and stronger, those rumours.
Don't.
Reports that he wants to rejoin his old teammate Cristiano Ronaldo, who they seem to be very close, both on and off the pitch. So it does look almost likely that he will join Juventus. There's a lot of noise being created at the moment, which of course would mean that one piece has to fall out at Juventus, who is already there.
Yeah, let's not go into the Juventus saga too much. You know exactly where I stand with Marcelo going on. But Matt has actually come through, and he's actually touched on the very next one we are going to talk about. And yes, we'll have to put the countdown back to 0 on this one. It is Mauro Icardi, the former Inter captain. I was about to call him the Inter captain there, but the Inter striker who hasn't played in the last couple of matches. Mauro Icardi has now been linked strongly with the two teams above Inter on the table. Napoli, his boys Napoli, of course, and Juventus. Now, firstly, where do you see him going once the summer transfer window does open and people are able to be traded?
Is this assuming he leaves Inter?
I think he will leave Inter. I don't think he's hanging around. That's my personal opinion. I think he's probably 12 months too late. He probably should have left last season. But it looks like now that it doesn't look like it's going to be a very strong and repairable relationship over the next few months. So yes, I think he is gone.
Out of those two, Juve-Napoli, I'd say Juve. I think Mandzukic is getting on in age. There were reports earlier in the season that this will be his last season at the Bianconeri. So they will need a number 9. Obviously, Higuain not there. Ronaldo hasn't really fitted in well in that number 9 position. He obviously prefers the left-hand side. So I think Icardi Juve, in terms of positioning, would be a little more suitable than Napoli.
He could. And when you also factor in the news that Gonzalo Higuain has been officially told that he won't be coming back to Juventus come July, he will need to find another home. That does sound a little bit plausible. However, Napoli have money now. Napoli have the money that they banked in from Hamsik, the money that they'll probably bank in from a few other players that they are intending to sort of sell and finally clarify their positions on.
Jorginho as well.
Remember,
they didn't spend anything.
That's
really.
Right.
Just Verdi was the only player they bought.
That's right. So he does fit their profile. Between the ages, say 25 and 27. Icardi will be 26 later on this year. We know that Aurelio De Laurentiis, the Napoli president, only wants to buy players in their 20s. I don't know how that's going to go in the next few years when they all start to get closer to 30 and he might need to sell them off and bring the next generation through. We know that there is a very strong word as well about Dries Mertens and possibly being cashed in to go to China. I'm not ruling this one out. Icardi to Napoli sounds a little bit more plausible than Icardi to Juventus. Juventus have got so much money that they are spending each and every week in terms of their salaries to players. I will not rule out Icardi to Napoli at all, and I will give Matt some hope there for the Azzurri.
Yeah, I'm certainly not ruling it out either. I think Napoli do have money. Like I said earlier, they didn't buy anyone last transfer window, which was remarkable. I think Carlo Ancelotti is beginning to build something strong there at Napoli. I can see him staying there for a number of years. Perhaps he can lure the Argentine to the club where he would join a formidable attack, obviously, Insigne and Milik, who has really come up now. That would be an incredible strike force.
It could be. So we'll have to wait and see with that one because, well, Wanda Icardi, the agent, his wife, well, we know how she operates. She takes her time. It's calculated. She's been saying that she's a revolutionary agent in this space and in the field. So let's see how revolutionary she is in maybe getting her husband / player / client across to another team, whether it be in Italy or whether it be in Europe. There's some other transfer news, and it's got to do with Bayern Munich. We don't speak too often here about the Germans because, well, they've been usually very much keeping their cards close to their chest. But unofficially, Bayern Munich are going to go after a new forward, another winger, and, well, they want a left back. They want someone to possibly help see the transition beyond Daniel Alaba, who might get moved a little bit more centrally, maybe even in midfield. And so they're now starting to think about Pepe, we have touched on. He could be a possibility. Florian Thauvin for Marseille. We know that Marseille that Thauvin and Rudi Garcia have, I wouldn't say a fractious relationship, that's probably being a bit too harsh, but they're not seeing eye to eye, and now with Mario Balotelli scoring a few more goals, they're not relying on the French World Cup winner as such. So there's a little bit of a play here all of a sudden that Thauvin could come across to the Bavarian Giants, but they have almost categorically ruled out no Nabil Fekir, no Adrien Rabiot.
Thauvin's certainly a possibility because I think we are starting to see a new era here at Bayern Munich. Both Robben and Ribéry, I think, will leave at the end of the season. I think they both have announced that this will be their final seasons at Bayern Munich. So they need new faces, new blood, fresh blood in Munich for next season and beyond. Thauvin perhaps could make that move. You mentioned Balotelli coming in and firing 3 goals in 4 games, so maybe Thauvin could make the move to Bayern Munich.
It'd be interesting. What about with, of course, Pepe? Could you see him fitting in Germany?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I think I could. Obviously, Lewandowski will still be there. He's still got a few years ahead of him. I think he could.
Well, they
He's still at a young age.
They still do need a left-sided forward/winger. He could be the one that sort of does come in, and we've known that Bayern Munich are interested in Callum Hudson-Odoi, the Chelsea winger. So we know that they're after somebody who can play on the left. Tuvan can also play on the left, even though he does prefer to play as a sort of partner to a striker or even just behind them. I'm not ruling that one out for Pepe as well. It's just whether, of course, Bayern Munich are looking to spend that sort of cash to bring in somebody who's really only proven themselves over one, maybe 2 seasons at the absolute most.
Yeah, you mentioned that left-hand side. There's also question marks over Kingsley Coman, who's been injured several times this season.
Well, he's now done an injury. He did his hamstring on the weekend. We know about his syndesmosis injury to that left ankle on a few occasions over the last couple of years. Maybe they have to. Maybe the trigger has to be pulled a little bit earlier in regards to Kingsley Coman and whether he is going to be given first-team status if 100% fit and ready to go.
Yeah, 100% fit, though, is hard to come by for him this season.
Well, it's been hard to come by for the last few seasons in particular.
Yeah, so disappointing for the Frenchman. Hopefully he can get back on the pitch, but if he can't, Pepe may be the option to fill.
It is. And there's one other player that actually has been linked to Bayern. Now, I recall this story because this was the very first story of New Year's Day 2019. Lucas Hernandez. Now, if you recall back to this time at that stage, that Bayern Munich were preparing to bid 85 million euros for him. They were prepared to pay out that release clause. They really wanted him from Atletico Madrid, brought over to the Bavarians. Well, they're still interested in him, but they're not revealing how much they're interested in him for. Now, if it's true that they are willing to pay out the release clause, well, we're talking the best part of 85 million. But I don't think, shrewdly speaking, Bayern are going to go out there and spend that coin on someone like him when they have Daniel Alaba in their wings.
It's a lot of money for a fullback, and Alaba is there and still playing at a highly consistent level. The Austrians, so I can't see them spending 85 million on Hernandez.
No, I can't either. The only way I can see it is maybe if they purchase him for a similar sort of price to Benjamin Pavard, who they get in the summer from Stuttgart, 30, 35, maybe 40. I think they've got him for 35. Maybe if they spend something similar to that, of course, with Atletico Madrid, then you can start to think about, okay, Joshua Kimmich has gone centrally and become a defensive midfielder. Alaba can do something similar. Maybe you can even start to play as a wing-back type scenario. Maybe you also might be able to use Alaba on the right, Pavard as a central midfielder, which is what he currently plays as. He only plays as a right-back in the French national team. That's a little bit different there of a setup. But then you might be able to use Alaba on the left, or you might be able to use him in another type of position, or even as a straight out-and-out wing back.
Certainly a lot of flexibility for Bayern Munich going into next season.
Well, that's what Niko Kovac has always been about. He's always been about settling in for the first season, working out where his pieces best fit, working out what he can do tactically, how he can arrange them a little bit, and then once he's worked all that out, trying to get a few others to complement that style. That's what he did at Eintracht Frankfurt and worked so successfully well. Now, all of a sudden, he gets to do it at a bigger club in Bayern Munich.
Fantastic appointment, Kovac, I think. Still don't think they'll win the Bundesliga this season, but long-term, I think this appointment will prove to be a wonderful one.
I still think they can. The gap is very much now close. 3 points, anything can happen. We know the run that Dortmund have had recently. They've sort of been knocked off their perch a little bit. They don't seem this indestructible team anymore. I still give every single chance to Bayern Munich to somehow lift another trophy at the end of the season, that being the Bundesliga title. Let's go into some other news, Damon, because there's a little bit others, and we'll touch on these sort of coaching appointments. Now, we've already discussed Brendan Rodgers, but the other one overnight. Now, this one we half expected to occur, but half expected wouldn't occur, and that is, of course, Ricardo from Bordeaux. Now, why? Because in September, Gaspoyer was also sacked from Bordeaux. So this is their second sacking of a manager in the space of, 6 months, if that. Bit of a shock. Well, Bordeaux haven't had the best of times. Let's be perfectly honest. They have sort of slipped off the perch a little bit in Ligue 1. They're mid-table at the moment. I think they're in about 13th, yes, they are. 32 points. I think they're closer to the relegation zone than they are to actually 7th or 4th place, which is the Champions League, which is what Les Girondins were being aiming for once they appointed a former coach in Ricardo. What do you make of this one?
Well, all I can make of it is disappointing for the club and their fans, because Bordeaux are a club who will certainly be aspiring for a higher finish than 13th or 14th. This is a club who were in the Champions League in the 2000s and early 2010s, and Europa League as well.
Although we're there this season.
Correct, they were. And sacked the manager after two games this season. So, disappointing for them. Hopefully they can get back on their feet and make European competitions once again. But right now they'll need some stability.
Yeah, they do. I don't know where they're going to get it from. I really don't, because they will appoint, it does seem, they will appoint Paulo Sousa, who is currently at Tianjin Quanjin in the Chinese Super League, on the cusp of their season kicking off. You talk about stability. You're pulling out a coach prior to the season commencing to bring in to finish off a season that has been anything but smooth sailing. Tumultuous is probably the word that comes to mind here, unfortunately, for Les Girondins. Not a good look. It hasn't been a good look really all season for him. It started off with the whole Malcolm transfer, that he was going to Rome Airport and ended up at Barcelona. Beautiful airport nonetheless, might I say. But from there, you could just see that the season was just slowly starting to unravel, and they just have never been able to sort of keep up the momentum and the pace going forward.
No, disappointing for them. Certainly not in a place that they want to be.
No, not at all. There's probably another 15 or so minutes here on Afternoons on FNR. Rick D'Andrea, Damon Palmar, all brought to you by Lanco Group. Damon, this is another story I actually want to get your opinion on. And why I want to get it is because we've previously discussed the issue of sort of feeder clubs, teams, bigger teams linking up with smaller teams, or having what they have in Spain, which is essentially a B team. The latest reports are, and they're quite strong at this stage, is that Paris Saint-Germain and Orléans, which is a team in Ligue 2, in case you're wondering, my pronunciation is not very good, are close to an agreement in relation to letting some PSG youth players, or PSG, what I've termed second string players, those that don't get a lot of minutes, actually go to the Ligue 2 side, develop, build up their confidence, get some minutes into their legs, and maybe mount a case to come back to the first team and play on.
Yeah, it's not something we see too often, a team forming an affiliation with a team below them in terms of the hierarchy in a domestic competition. But here we see it with Paris Saint-Germain. Could be a win-win. I think when giants of world football such as PSG want to loan players out, there are a number of clubs they can loan them out to, but to have their own sort of affiliated club, I think that could work out for their youth players, where they will certainly be guaranteed minutes in Ligue 2. Once they've developed, could come back up to Ligue 1 and perform for Paris Saint-Germain. I
love this quote. It's from Luis Fernandez, who's the former he is the youth team coach, and it's from the Orléans president Philippe Boutron. We've had discussions at length. The idea interests us greatly, and them too. The two clubs would be winners. PSG could test and follow those young players in Ligue 2 in a club that geographically is very close to them. And the USO, so being Orléans, could improve its squad with the loan signings of quality players. That does sound like a win-win to me.
Absolutely. I think long-term that can be very beneficial for Paris Saint-Germain's youth development going forward.
You just have to wonder, though, if all of a sudden that youth development gets Orléans into Ligue 1, what's going to happen?
That's a very interesting point, and then they face each other. There shouldn't be too many problems on a technical level in terms of rules and that.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe there are clauses that get inserted. We'll have to wait and see that you can't play against the parent club. It's going to be an interesting one going forward. So it's a wait-and-see approach, but it's interesting that all of a sudden PSG are starting to also look at a youth development level a little bit more stronger and maybe trying to form some sort of alliance going forward in the upcoming years.
They are still in the Coupe de France as well. They face Rennes. That would be very interesting if they face Paris Saint-Germain in the next round.
We'll have to wait and see. The draw is going to be a few days away and could be very, very interesting. All right, Damon, there's plenty of games to preview. There's plenty of games to talk about because there's a full load of fixtures. There's another 6 in the English Premier League. There's supposedly a fairly big game that's coming out of Spain. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but I think it's got the nickname as the Clasico. I think that's what it is. Rings a bell. Yeah. There's obviously, of course, the Coppa Italia going on with the second match being played. So there's plenty to talk about. Where do you want to begin?
We'll go to the big one.
We'll go to the big one. All right, Real Madrid, Barcelona, tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. here, local time, where you can catch all the action on beIN Sports. Real Madrid versus Barcelona. How do you see this one going, Damon?
Hard to predict, to be honest.
1-1 in the first leg. Real Madrid do have the advantage, the away goal, and it does apply at the Santiago Bernabéu.
So they do have the, upper hand there, but remember, Barcelona coming off an unbelievable win against Sevilla. Messi scoring one of the best hat-tricks I've ever seen, and Suarez adding the fourth. So, in the front third, they're on. Barcelona, I think they can go to the Bernabéu and score goals. Real Madrid is the more tricky one, because they've been very inconsistent throughout the whole season. So you just don't know which side are going to turn up. I'd imagine they'd be pretty fired up for this match, and they'd certainly want to win. First of 2 Clásicos this week, remarkably.
The one being on the weekend.
I can see this being another 1-1 and going to extra time.
Ooh. Would it go to penalties? Or do you think it might be done before then?
Penalties, I would not be surprised. I can't see either side really breaking the deadlock and getting one over their rivals.
We'll have to wait and see on that one. But I think there's a few interesting dilemmas here for both teams. The first one is, who's going to play at left back for Real Madrid? Do you give the keys again to Marcelo, or do you give them to Sergio Reguilón? Now, if you give them to Marcelo, who happens to be lining up on him on the opposite right flank?
Messi.
Not a bad little person to have. Considering that Marcelo generally likes to sprint up the field and play in the attacking half of the field, I can't see Marcelo starting in this one. There's too much at risk here to be putting him in the starting left-back position, unless you tell him, don't advance up the pitch. That's the first thing that I think has to be discussed. He gets opened up far too many times this season from that position. I remember back to the match, I think it was 2 match days ago. I think it was against Atletico Madrid, if I'm not mistaken. 2 of the goals, or one goal, obviously, came from that. Sorry, it was the Seville game. My apologies. How did he get opened up? Twice on that right flank. Gets found out for me too many times there. So that's the first issue. The second issue is, who do Barcelona conversely have at left back? It's Jordi Alba. Jordi Alba, in my eyes, has been one of the best 3 players in La Liga this season. For the first leg, Lucas Vázquez came in and marked him well. But now there's a little bit to play here, and it's a little bit on the line. Do you go with the Spanish international again, or do you go with Gareth Bale? Now, we know about Gareth Bale and the reported issues and troubles that have been sort of brewing underneath, that his teammates sort of aren't sticking by him as much as they previously have. I wouldn't say that there's no cohesion, but there's something simmering in the background for me. But nonetheless, someone needs to man mark Jordi Alba, and I don't know if it's going to be Lucas Vázquez, and I don't know if it's going to be Gareth Bale.
Yeah, you mentioned Jordi Alba. I can't remember the exact stat, but it was something like 7 games that he hasn't played this season. I think they've only won 1, which is unbelievable. So you're absolutely right in saying he has been one of the best players in La Liga this season. So he should be causing some problems for Real Madrid in this match.
There's also a few issues defensively in general. Barcelona, you can't go in particular to the Roman Sanchez Pizjuán against Seville, against a team that likes to attack a lot, and be down 2-1 at half-time. Against a better quality attack in Vinicius Junior and Karim Benzema, that will hurt you. So I don't know if Ernesto Valverde's got something to counter the amount of space that was allowed, is particularly in transition for Gerard Piqué, Clement Lenglet. Maybe he might use Samuel Umtiti, who is now fit and regaining form, or even Semedo at right back. But you can't allow that much space to Real Madrid. They will punish you on every level. There's a few questions here for me that need to be asked by both teams. And it's very, very tough to give a prediction one way or other, because you look at both factors and on both sides and you go, I can see plenty of goals being scored. They need to go out there and win. I can't see this being a 4-3 though. So it's an interesting dilemma at this stage that I'm having to try and work out a prediction.
Yeah, it will certainly be a massive tactical battle, I think. There's so many different lineups both sides can go out with, like the ones you have mentioned. So I just can't see a winner in this match.
You can't.
Other than penalties.
Once penalties decided, who do you think will win it then?
Well, that's a lottery.
You've gone down the lottery path here. You're saying this is going to go to extra time and penalties here. Come on. Head on the line. Who do you think is going to progress through to the Coppa del Rey final?
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. Because they are at home, I guess you have to give it that factor.
Yeah, big advantage taking penalties at home, obviously, with the crowd there.
I'm going to go Barcelona, and not because I want to sort of go against you and we have this little bit of a rivalry going on in terms of the tipping. No, I think, as we have seen for the second legs of the round of 16, the quarterfinals, and previously, many times, there's one player and one player only who has taken his game to an even higher astronomical level. And we don't even mention him as sort of the player of the season over and over again because it's just an expected standard. And that is, of course, Lionel Messi. He did it against Girona. He did it against Seville. He'll probably end up doing it again here in the second leg. He just takes his game, like I said, just 20%, 30% above where it's normally at in a second leg, a major final or a major moment, a major tournament, and he just brings his A game and he performs and he delivers like a postman.
And no one can keep up with him when he does that. He does it and him alone. So that will certainly be a worrying factor for Real Madrid, but I'm still going to tip Los Blancos.
Let's wait and see. The game, as I said, will be on BN Sports, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. The other game that is on, we'll quickly preview these games before we actually get into the English Premier League. The other game, Fiorentina-Atalanta, in a very quick word. We'll obviously provide a bit more detail later on in our second hour via our app or via our website, so do tune in. Fiorentina-Atalanta. Fiorentina have been in a scoring mood. Atalanta have slowly plateaued and maybe fallen off a little bit of the bandwagon.
Well, they haven't been in the scoring mood, Atalanta. They were, and in the past two games, Torino, 2-0 loss, and a 3-1 loss to Milan last week. So one goal in two games after, well, they still are the highest scoring team in Serie A, I believe. Fiorentina win. They're in such good form. They had that 7-1 smashing against Roma in the previous round. Scored 3 against Inter in the Serie A on the weekend. At home, I think they'll just be too strong.
Don't forget who Atalanta eliminated to get through, though.
They did.
And it's not a bad way that they did it, 3-0.
But they're not currently in the form they were when they beat Juventus 3-0.
That's true. It was a lot reliant on the likes of Ilicic and Duvan Zapata in particular to get those goals. It's a one-off first leg match, so it's two legs, so you can sort of build into it. I don't know. I'm more leaning towards a score draw in this one. Fiorentina's defence has been found out on too many occasions for my liking, but I also think that De Viola will get on the score sheet, that Atalanta will concede 1 or 2 in this one. So maybe I'm going more of a score draw rather than an outright winner in the first leg.
I think there will be plenty of goals in this match. I think Fiorentina can score 3 again, and Atalanta 1 or 2, but I think Fiorentina will get the win.
Ooh, okay, it's going to be an interesting one. Like we said, beIN Sports will also have it. I think it's also on YouTube. The FIGC, the Italian Federation, has been putting these games up for viewing via YouTube, so do tune in, and if you do want to watch it, enjoy some cracking action there. Couple of moments to go there. In the Coupe de France, 2 other matches. Rennes Orléans, you did touch on this a moment ago. Rennes are through to the round of 16, I should say, of the Europa League, as well as here the quarterfinals. Orléans we've touched on. How do you think this one's going to go?
Should be routine for Rennes. They've had a fantastic season. Still in the Europa League, as you mentioned. I think they will get through quite comfortably.
Yeah, it looks like Stéphane Julien, their coach, he's on fire at the moment. Can't put a foot wrong with this team, and especially in second legs when he's had to sort of tell his teams to turn it up a little bit. They've come in and they've absolutely done exactly that. Lyon-Caen, that's the final match of the Cups going around at the moment. There's only one winner in this one, is there?
You would think so, but Lyon have just been so inconsistent this year. You just don't feel confident when you're tipping them to win, but Caen have been abysmal this season, so you'd think Lyon.
Caen, worst team in France at the moment, or at least worst team in Ligue 1, so I'm not giving them too much of a chance. Do stay tuned to us afternoons on FNR with Football Nation Radio. Plenty more to come up. Tune into our app, tune into our website for the second hour here. We're done for the Facebook Live today, Damon. Thank you very much as always.
Thank you, Rick.
And we will be back after a break here on afternoons on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
You're listening to Afternoons